So, do you guys remember the last episode when I said I'm gonna apply some light amounts of teeny tiny rust effects? Well,
I lied. What you gonna do?
I like mixing my rust tones from pigments, enamels and oil paints. Each component gives the mixture its own unique properties, which I might explain in a separate video if you guys are interested. This time I don't have any exact mixing ratio, so every mixture I make is slightly different. The entire process is very straightforward. Apply the rust tone over most, like 98% of the chips. Note how the amount of rust is quite limited. You don't want to cover the entire surface with it. Then clean your brush and start blending. It's important to clean the brush often, otherwise you would flood the surface with paint trapped in its bristles. The mixture is leaving some light colored stains on the dark brown parts. I will address this in a minute. Let's add some more now. You can add more enamel thinner to the mixture if you want to. It will make the rust less opaque. I think it's very important how you blend the rust. I'm using only small amount of thinner and I'm just feathering the edges of the rust spots. If you just went over the entire spot with a brush, you would wipe away most of the effect. I only do that when I feel there's too much rust and I want to tone down the effect. That's also why I'm covering almost all the chips, because some of that rust will be removed while I'm blending. Now I took a dry soft brush and went over the dark camouflage parts to smoothen out the stains. I believe these happened because of the light orange pigment. The dark brown makes the effect more visible than the lighter green paint. It's easy to remove them if you do this soon enough, like right after you're done with blending. And because the rest of the video will be the same technique done in different places, I'm gonna talk more about theory and just stuff. So first thing is, why? Why I'm adding so much rust in the first place? It's a functional tank after all, not a wreck. Well, the reason is the chipping and the rust makes the model look like it's actually made from steel. Like it's not a plastic toy, but actual thing made from metal. Also, the chips themselves look just like fine brush strokes on their own, nothing more. So the rust makes them look more finished. I first did this in 2013 on my ISU 122 model, when I was experimenting with Mike Rinaldi's oil paint rendering technique. And I felt like, you know, the surface was very nice and all, but the chips, they were missing something. They felt like they were just work in progress. So I painted some rust over them and boom! Then there's the amount. It's too much, it's gonna look like an abandoned vehicle, you might say. Yes, the model will somewhat look like that, but from my experience the rust gets heavily toned down by earth effects, just like on this T34. You obviously need to think a few steps ahead, because if you, for example, want the model rather clean, then the dust zones won't do you much favor. So in that case, you should keep the rust more limited. So, why I'm mixing so many things together instead of using a single product? Well, like I said, each component, aka the pigment, oil paint and enamel paint, has its own specific properties, and I would like to have all of them. The entire thing is a bit more complicated, so I can make a specific video about this in the future if you guys want to, but in short, oil paints have a lot of pigment and they blend beautifully because of the linseed oil in them, but they blend too perfectly for the effect I'm after. They also dry slowly. Enamels, on the other hand, dry faster, hold stronger, but they don't have that much pigment in them, and sometimes when they dry they leave a glossy stain here and there, especially if they were applied in a thicker layer. They also blend into a more random effect, which is what we should be after. And the pigment, well, I obviously used it to make the mixture lighter, but also it will give the paint some texture. I'm talking like microscopic texture, but it will give the rust very authentic look, like it's actual rust in 1/35th scale, not just rust colored paint. And the last thing is it realistic? Does armor rust so fast? Would the authorities allow this to happen? Is there life on other planets? I don't know, and I'm perfectly okay with that. I enjoy doing it. The model looks more finished and more complex, and it's fun. It is plausible, because we see effects like this in everyday life, and that to me is more important than science and chemistry and whatever. I'm not gonna say that it's a what-if model and anything is possible there, because I believe what-if tanks should be painted with the same approach as any other vehicle. There should be at least some logic and common sense behind it. And I do this on every model. Even someone who doesn't know anything about military vehicles should understand what's going on the surface, because they will think like, yeah, the paint is chipped and there's some rust, and I saw that the other day on that bulldozer parked at that construction site. And I think that's the goal, to make the model clearly understandable and interesting to look at. Whew, that was a bit more philosophical than I wanted. Okay, so in the next episode I will paint the road wheels, machine guns, headlight, exhaust, some streaking effects and stuff like that. And let me guys know what you think about rust effects in the comments below. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you mates in the next one.